Have you ever known someone who devoted their life to chasing sexual encounters? Who spent most of their time dining and sleeping with numerous women, perhaps had a new woman each time you met him? What would such a life be like? Would it be worth living? How has life turned out for those people in history that lived this way? I would say most men have or will entertain this idea at some point in their lives. And there is a long history, even legend, of men throwing aside societal expectations and dedicating their lives to the pursuit of sexual pleasure. It is through reading these stories that we can gain insights as to what may happen if we dedicate our lives to sexual pursuit. This scenario appears so frequently in sacred texts and classical literature that it has become a universal theme in the male psyche, the allure of unrestrained sexual freedom and indulgence. In fact, the very first of all stories, according to most of the Western world, begins with this idea. That is, Adam in the Garden of Eden. It is the indulgence of eating the forbidden fruit that brings about his downfall, his separation from the divine, and commences all the pain and suffering that humans are to endure from that moment on. Throughout history, the forbidden fruit is often understood to represent the allure of sexual temptation. By indulging in the forbidden fruit, man not only brought about his own downfall, but he also shattered the harmony of the world itself, ushering in suffering, disease, and death. It was said that evil itself was birthed into the world from this first transgression. So we see that from the commencement of man's story, the consequences of indulging in lust have been clearly laid out. The man who chases pleasure at the expense of all else does not find heaven on earth, he finds hell. In more recent history, we have Giocomo Kasanova, the 18th century's most infamous womanizer. A man whose name became synonymous with seduction, Casanova chronicled over 100 sexual conquests across Europe. In his own words, he writes, "Cultivating whatever gave pleasure to my senses was always the chief business of my life. I have never found any occupation more important. Feeling that I was born for the sex opposite mine, I have always loved it and done all that I could to make myself loved by it. I have also been extravagantly fond of good food and irresistibly drawn by anything which could excite curiosity." Casanova, through his accounts, lived a very colourful life, though his decline was marked with much bitterness and cynicism. Continuing on with the libertine life, it was at around 60 that things started to decline. The charm that once opened every door began to fade. His health suffered. His reputation diminished, and the social circles that once celebrated him slowly shut him out. He found himself no longer admired, but pitied, or even worse, ignored. With few options left, he accepted a position as a librarian at Dux Castle in Bohemia. Though not formally exiled, Casanova saw this as a kind of personal banishment. He was surrounded not by philosophers or aristocrats, but by indifferent nobles and mocking servants. He spent the remainder of his life in loneliness and isolation. The pleasures he once worshipped now brought him no joy. The thrill of conquest had faded, and what remained was a man growing old in isolation, clinging to memories that no longer served him. His writings from this period are laced with resentment and a deepening disillusionment, not only with others, but with himself. The libertine life, once so full of promise, had hollowed him out. Casanova paid the price of this unrestrained sexuality in many ways. He was known to have suffered from several sexually transmitted diseases throughout his lifetime, including multiple bouts of gonorrhea and likely syphilis. He had no companionship from a wife or kids, as his years were spent pursuing temporary encounters. Casanova suffered many moral misfortunes from the choices he made in his life. He was imprisoned for moral and social subversion. He became addicted to gambling and took out many loans, burned many bridges, and became financially bankrupt on multiple occasions throughout his life. Involved in various scandals and schemes, he also claimed to be an alchemist and a Rosicrucian, claims that earned him favor with certain nobles and may have paved the way for his work as a spy for several European courts. Thus, the evidence shows that Casanova's moral failings were far from confined to the realm of sexuality. Beyond his endless pursuit of women, it was his reckless debts, betrayals, and scandals that most shaped his life. There is also evidence that his immoral ways took a toll on his appearance. The few physical descriptions from those who associated with Casanova revealed this. At age 49, the years of reckless living and the thousands of miles of travel had taken their toll. Casanova's smallpox scars, sunken cheeks, and hook nose became all the more noticeable. His easygoing manner was now more guarded. Prince Charles de Lion, a friend and uncle of his future employer, described him around 1784. He would be a good-looking man if he were not ugly. He is tall and built like Hercules, but of an African tint, eyes full of life and fire, but touchy, wary, rancorous, and this gives him a ferocious air. It is easier to put him in a rage than to make him gay. He laughs little, but makes others laugh. Casanova stated that he did not regret the life he led, though many of his writings did indicate there was remorse in the way he lived it. He wrote, "If I had married a woman intelligent enough to guide me, to rule me without my feeling that I was ruled, I should have taken good care of my money. I should have had children, and I should not be, as now I am, alone in the world and possessing nothing." Of course, there are some men who may be happy with this outcome, using what vitality they have left for pleasures of the moment and dealing with the consequences later. The ideal hedonistic life. I think semen retention is about getting off this path. Though we don't often discuss semen retention with morality, it is very much a moral practice. Semen retention makes you more moral in how you think and act, and that naturally leads your life in a different direction. As we have seen with Casanova, and perhaps many sensualists before him, an immoral life often leads to misfortune and suffering. This theme runs throughout history. Early Buddhism, for instance, places great importance on renouncing desire as a path to freedom from suffering. Somewhere in this account, I think we can see a very likely outcome for the man who decides to pursue a life of sexual debauchery and unrestrained pleasure. Perhaps we are discussing something that is the very opposite to semen retention and chaste living. That is, to live spending your sexual force and losing your seed on a regular basis. Such a road can only lead to an early demise. Written in the 1800s. That promiscuous indulgence is most sinful is evident from that terrible penalty affixed to its perpetration. To lose bone and muscle and nerve by inches, and literally be eaten up alive. Consequences thus direful show that their cause must be a sin proportionally aggravated. Sin ye who will, but suffer ye who sin. God is just, and visits his violated law with retribution. Nor does this curse of curses cease with its author, but is justly entailed upon his children, and his children's children, unto the third and fourth generations. See yonder maimed and hobbling object of pity, his limbs distorted, his joints dislocated and racked with pain, his life tormented by running sores, his mind feeble and passions ungovernable. All this is but the wages of his father's licentiousness. We thus see that nature, as well as the Bible, condemns licentiousness, so that disbelievers in the latter are yet bound by nature's inflexible laws to continence, except in wedlock. But a point thus self-evident need not be urged. Beware then, O passionate youth, how you commit this sin. Above all the personal suffering that comes with the pursuit of sex, the sensualist is simply unproductive, and there is nothing that weighs heavier on the human soul than being useless and of little value to the world. The suffering this brings is existential, and is often of the worst kind to bear. A man consumed by sex has little energy to devote to useful pursuits, and thus his existence is not benefiting man and society around him. Perhaps he provides an evening of sensuality and fun to a woman on occasion, but these encounters too are often quickly ended, the love connection severed, and the pain covered over and over by the next encounter. This is not sustainable, and there is not much meaning to be taken from it. No matter how highly your mind holds the value of orgasmic release, the sensualist will struggle to accept what he is compromising for that feeling. He is giving away his purpose and ability to forge any real value in this world, and as time passes and his looks and vitality wane, he will be left with essentially nothing. Of course, in the end, on our deathbed, we will have nothing to take with us, though at least the productive man can lie on his deathbed, having lived a productive life, and find solace in his death. There is much more joy and happiness to be experienced in a body that has not had its vitality depleted over many years. One feels more alive, more stimulated, and more comfortable in their own skin, in their own mind. All men, and young men in particular, can experience the immediate benefit of chastity. The memory is quiet and tenacious, the brain lively and fertile, the will energetic. The whole character gains a strength of which libertines have no conception. No prism shows us our surroundings under such heavenly colours as that of chastity, which lights up with its rays the least objects in the universe, and transports us into the purest joys of an abiding happiness that knows neither shadow nor decline. This is the life I feel we should aim for. No matter how hard your mind tries to convince you that sexual release and orgasm is the truth of life, time and time again, sensualists have learned the hard way that lust is not the truth, that the thirst and pursuit of sex is unquenchable, and no lasting satisfaction can be found in its experience.